Most scary marriage episode. At a dinner table heavy with silence, teenage Benny and her mother Clara sit quietly, the only sound being the soft clinking of cutlery on plates. The air is thick with unspoken tension. Eventually, Benny breaks the silence with a pointed question. She asks if Clara has told her husband, Benny's father, what they're having for breakfast the next day. Clara, confused and irritated, asks why it matters. Benny replies that he should know so he can control how much they're allowed to eat and avoid another outburst. Her comment hints at deeper issues within the family, particularly the father's controlling behavior and volatility. Clara is immediately enraged, telling Benny to shut her mouth and questioning how she could speak so disrespectfully about her own father. But Benny remains calm and firm. She declares that a man who lashes out at his family over food doesn't deserve to be called a father. Her words cut deep, and Clara reacts defensively. She insists that her husband works hard every day and does his best to provide, even in difficult circumstances. To Clara, Benny's criticism feels unfair and ungrateful. Benny softly reminds her mother that he once screamed at them over mere crumbs of bread. Clara, still emotional but slightly more composed, attempts to explain. She tells Benny that sometimes people lash out not because of the issue at hand, but because of the stress they carry. Her husband, she says, is overwhelmed by pressure from work, finances, and life, and unfortunately, that stress spills out at home. Benny then raises a valid point. If it's just stress, why does Clara also argue with him so much? Clara's demeanor turns cold and firm. She tells Benny that what happens between husband and wife is not her business. She insists that when Benny becomes an adult, she will understand how hard and painful life can be, especially in tough economic times. Clara makes it clear that from now on, there will be no more speaking poorly about her father, whether he's present or not. She demands respect for him at all times. Benny, quiet now, nods and agrees. Yes, she says, but the damage has been done. The tension doesn't fade. Instead, it settles even deeper into the room. An unsettling silence that holds pain, fear, and confusion beneath the surface. Joe is found sleeping in his car, parked along the roadside, when his friend Kennedy comes by and checks on him. Seeing Joe's face full of stress and pain, Kennedy asks what's wrong. Joe thanks him for coming, expressing deep appreciation, then finally opens up. He confesses that his heart is heavy because he feels like a failure. He's unable to provide for his family and is trapped in a lie. He lost his job but can't bring himself to tell his wife, Clara. Instead, every day he pretends to go to work by driving to a construction site and back, trying to maintain the illusion of a stable life. Joe fears that if Clara finds out the truth, she'll see him as a loser. Kennedy, growing concerned, tells Joe that this kind of marriage built on secrets won't last. He reminds Joe that pretending to be someone he's not, especially by trying to live like someone who still has a proper job, is only making things worse. He questions the logic behind fueling a car daily when the money Joe earns doesn't even cover the fuel costs. Joe tries to defend his choices, but Kennedy insists. It's time to tell Clara the truth. He reassures Joe that Clara is understanding, and that being honest could help them reduce expenses and work together through this hard time. Kennedy says, "You're not supposed to go through your lowest moments alone. She's your wife. She's your partner." Joe, still in denial, paints a picture of the life they once lived, a luxurious lifestyle that Clara enjoyed too. He's terrified of falling from that image in her eyes and admitting he can't even put food on the table. But Kennedy pushes harder. He tells Joe that continuing this act is not sustainable and that, eventually, the truth will come out. Kennedy also explains that he can no longer afford to help. He's brought fuel for Joe's car this one last time, but after this, Joe needs to make a change. He encourages Joe to park the car and look for a decent job instead of pretending. Joe feels offended and accuses Kennedy of insulting him, but Kennedy calmly explains he's not trying to shame him. He's simply being real. "You can keep the jerrycan," Kennedy says. "There's more where that came from, but I can't keep enabling this anymore. As the conversation ends, the weight of Joe's situation hangs in the air. He is torn between pride and desperation, knowing deep down that the day he fears, when Clara finds out the truth, is fast approaching. Clara was in the middle of her cleaning routine when her phone suddenly rang. Slightly irritated by the interruption, she glanced at the screen and noticed the call was coming from a hidden number. Curious but cautious, she answered the call. To her surprise, a familiar voice echoed through the speaker. It was Hanks, her ex-boyfriend from 2 decades ago. She was stunned. "It's been 20 years, yet you still remember my voice," Hanks said calmly, almost teasingly. Still processing the shock, Clara asked, "Hanks? Where are you calling me from? Are you in Nigeria?" Hanks responded, "Yes, I'm back. I want to see you." His words took her off guard. She paused, unsure of how to respond. "You want to see me?" she repeated, her tone a mix of surprise and caution. "Yes," Hanks confirmed. "I'll send you the address. Then you come." Clara didn't say much more, but her mind was already spinning with questions. Why now, after all these years? What did he want from her? The call stirred up memories she thought she had buried long ago. Clara and her friend Derby are sitting in the living room, discussing Clara's unexpected call from Hanks, her ex-boyfriend, who wants to meet with her after 20 years of silence. Derby takes a relaxed and open-minded stance. She reminds Clara that just because they dated in the past doesn't mean they should now be enemies. In her view, seeing Hanks again isn't necessarily a problem. You were once in love, you parted ways, and now you're married. It doesn't mean you can't meet and talk, she says. But Clara sees it differently. She explains that the issue isn't just about the past relationship. It's about how things ended. Hanks disappeared without a word. There was no proper breakup, no explanation, just silence. She only moved on because she had no choice. Clara's concern isn't only emotional. She's also worried about how her husband might react if he finds out she met with an old flame. "I don't want him to misconstrue things," she says. Derby, however, brushes that off. She believes Clara's husband should be mature enough to understand that the past is the past. Besides, she points out, Clara doesn't even know why Hanks wants to see her. It might be something innocent. He could be married now, have kids, and just want to reconnect. It's a garden, not a hotel, Derby jokes, encouraging Clara to meet him in the open, have a harmless chat, and return home. Clara admits she's torn. "Why does this feel so wrong and right at the same time?" she asks. Derby gently advises her to stop overthinking. "You're putting too much pressure on yourself. Just go with the flow. Get some air. You're not going to be with him like that, you know what I mean?" Finally, Clara seems to agree. After hearing Derby's reasoning and reassurances, she softens and says, "You have a point. I think I'll just go and see him." While working at the construction site, Joe's phone suddenly rings. It's Derby calling, and when he picks up, she immediately brings up something that catches him off guard. Derby asks if Clara, Joe's wife, has gotten his permission to visit Hanks, her ex-boyfriend. Joe is shocked and confused. Clara never mentioned anything about wanting to see her ex, and he can't understand why she would even consider it. Derby explains that she had warned Clara, reminding her that she's married and should be cautious about visiting an ex. But Clara told Derby there's nothing romantic or inappropriate going on between her and Hanks anymore. They parted ways a long time ago, and Clara just wants to see him after many years apart. Derby adds that Clara told her she planned to tell Joe about the visit, but apparently, she hasn't done so yet. Derby admits she didn't want to keep the information from Joe and thought he should hear it from her. Still, she respects that Clara is an adult and has the right to make her own choices. She tries to downplay the situation, saying there's nothing to worry about, but it's clear she's passing on a warning. After the call ends, Joe is left feeling uneasy. Without hesitation, he immediately calls Clara to confront her and get the truth directly from her. Clara meets up with her ex-boyfriend, Hanks, after many years apart. Hanks is visibly surprised and happy to see her, commenting on how beautiful she still looks despite appearing to have gone through some difficult times. Curious, Hanks asks about her husband, Joe, which surprises Clara. She never told him she was married. Hanks reveals he already knows her husband's name is Jonathan and that she has a daughter named Benny, leaving Clara shocked. She remarks that it seems someone has been keeping close tabs on her life. Hanks admits that he's been following her from a distance because when you truly love someone, you never stop caring. Clara, a bit sarcastic, asks why he hadn't kept tabs on her for the last 20 years. Hanks explains that a lot happened during that time. He lost contact but is grateful to be back now. Clara quickly tells him he's too late, implying that too much time has passed. Hanks assures her that he has no intention of interfering in her life or marriage. He just wanted to check in and see how she was doing. When Hanks asks how her husband treats her, Clara says Joe is the sweetest and nicest man she's ever met. However, Hanks can tell she's not being entirely honest. He points out that while her words say she's happy, her eyes tell a different story. Clara then admits she's currently having issues in her marriage but insists it doesn't mean her husband doesn't love or care for her. She insists she's fine and that her marriage is perfect. The conversation shifts when Hanks expresses surprise that Clara is home and not working. She explains that her husband provides everything for her, so she doesn't need to work. Hanks challenges this, saying that regardless of how much a man has, a woman should still be allowed to work. He believes every woman deserves freedom, identity, and independence, especially someone like Clara, who once valued those things. Clara says her husband doesn't want her to work, and Hanks encourages her to demand the right to do so. He argues that it's not just about income, it's about living a meaningful life, contributing to the family, and having a personal sense of purpose. He warns that relying on a man for everything can be limiting, even if his intentions seem good. Just as the conversation becomes more intense and emotional, Clara's phone rings. It's her husband, Joe, calling, bringing the moment to a pause and reminding her of the life she has to return to. Sometimes the scariest part of marriage isn't what's said, it's what's silently endured. Behind closed doors, love can be complicated, masked by duty, shame, fear, or pride. But true strength lies not in pretending everything is fine, but in the courage to speak truth, face pain, and reclaim your voice. Whether as a wife, husband, daughter, or friend, every person deserves dignity, respect, and the freedom to grow, not just survive. When love becomes control, and when silence becomes suffocation, it's time to choose healing over hiding. You are not weak for struggling. You are human. But staying in silence when your soul is drowning, that's not loyalty. That's self-abandonment. To those living in the shadows of fear or false perfection, your truth matters. Your voice matters. You matter. Let this be a reminder. Even the most broken chapters can lead to powerful new beginnings, if we're brave enough to turn the page.